Hello brothers and welcome to Sigma Grandpa channel. Never mistake invisibility for weakness. Some of the most powerful people in the room are the ones you've barely noticed. Think about that for a second. In a world obsessed with being louder, faster, and constantly seen, there's a rare kind of man who does the exact opposite and somehow ends up impossible to ignore. Here's a fascinating fact. Psychologists have long observed that people who speak less are often perceived as more thoughtful and more competent, simply because others naturally fill the silence with assumptions. Sometimes, saying less makes people imagine more. Now, that doesn't automatically make someone a Sigma male. In fact, that's where most people get it wrong. The internet has turned the Sigma male into a walking stereotype. A man in a black hoodie staring into the distance like he's auditioning for a movie trailer. It's entertaining, but reality is far more interesting. A true Sigma isn't defined by dramatic silence or trying to look mysterious. He's defined by subtle behaviors that most people completely overlook. The kind of habits that don't demand attention but quietly earn respect. And here's the twist. Some of the signs we're about to cover are so subtle that you might have been doing them your entire life without realizing they reveal something unusual about the way you think. So before you decide whether you're a Sigma male or whether you've simply fallen for another internet myth, stay until the end. Because the rarest signs are never the loudest. Number 1, silence doesn't make you uncomfortable. It gives you information. Most people are terrified of silence. The moment a conversation slows down, they rush to fill the gap. They crack a joke, explain themselves too much, change the subject, or start talking just to make the discomfort disappear. But if you're a Sigma male, silence doesn't feel like an enemy. It feels like information. The moment people stop talking, something interesting happens. Their body language starts speaking instead. Their confidence changes. Their eyes wander. Their posture shifts. Some suddenly become restless, while others begin revealing things they never planned to say. Silence has a strange way of exposing what words often hide. This is why you don't feel pressured to respond instantly. You understand that the first person who rushes to speak is often reacting emotionally, while the person who stays calm has the advantage of seeing the whole situation unfold. You're not trying to appear mysterious. You're simply paying attention. What's fascinating is that silence often makes other people do the hard work for you. Someone trying to impress you will usually keep talking until they reveal their real intentions. Someone who isn't being truthful may start adding unnecessary details. Someone who genuinely believes in what they're saying doesn't usually panic when there's a pause. This doesn't mean you sit there saying nothing just to make people uncomfortable. Forced silence is just another performance and people can sense it. The difference is that you don't fear quiet moments, and because of that, you notice details everyone else misses. Ironically, the loudest person in the room isn't always the one in control. More often than not, the person who calmly observes before speaking has the clearest understanding of what's actually happening. While everyone else is busy trying to be heard, you're busy learning. In a world where people constantly feel the need to explain, defend, and prove themselves, your willingness to let silence do some of the talking becomes an advantage. Not because silence is magic, but because it reveals things that noise never can. Number 2, you secretly lose respect for people who need an audience to feel important. One of the clearest signs of a Sigma male is that he's rarely impressed by people who constantly need an audience. While others are drawn to loud personalities, endless self-promotion, and carefully staged success, you find yourself asking a different question. Who are they when nobody is watching? You've noticed something that many people miss. The louder someone tries to convince the world they're important, the more it often feels like they're trying to convince themselves. Real confidence doesn't usually make a grand entrance. It doesn't need dramatic speeches, daily announcements, or constant reminders of how successful, intelligent, or powerful someone is. It simply exists. That doesn't mean you dislike successful people. In fact, you admire excellence. What you struggle to respect is the obsession with being seen. There are people who spend more time documenting their progress than actually making it. Every achievement becomes a performance. Every good deed needs witnesses. Every conversation somehow circles back to them. Ironically, the people who make the biggest impact are often the least interested in advertising it. They're busy building instead of broadcasting. They understand that reputation grows naturally when your work speaks louder than your words. This mindset also changes how you measure yourself. You don't feel the need to prove your worth every day because you know that validation has an expiration date. The applause fades, the likes stop coming, the compliments disappear. If your confidence depends on those things, it disappears with them. That's why you quietly distance yourself from people who treat attention like oxygen. Not because you think you're better than they are, but because you know how exhausting that chase becomes. Living for an audience means you're always performing, and performers rarely get to rest. A Sigma male would rather be respected than noticed, trusted than admired, and remembered for what he built, rather than for how loudly he talked about it. To him, genuine influence isn't measured by how many eyes are watching. It's measured by the lasting value that's left behind long after the crowd has gone home. Number 3, you're difficult to manipulate because you rarely react immediately. Most people make their biggest mistakes when they're pushed to decide too quickly. They hear phrases like, "This offer expires today," "I need an answer right now," or, "If you really cared, you'd do it immediately." And suddenly they're making choices with their emotions instead of their judgment. A Sigma male sees this differently. Whenever someone creates unnecessary urgency, his first instinct isn't to speed up, it's to slow down. You've learned that pressure is one of the oldest tools of manipulation, whether it's in business, friendships, relationships, or everyday conversations. People often use urgency to stop you from thinking clearly. The less time you have to reflect, the more likely you are to agree to something you'll later regret. That's why you're comfortable saying, "Let me think about it." Even when everyone else is rushing, those few words can save you from bad investments, one-sided relationships, and decisions made simply to keep someone else happy. You understand that if something is genuinely worthwhile, it can usually survive a little patience. What's interesting is that this habit often frustrates people who are trying to control the outcome. They expect an instant reaction, but instead they're met with calm. They push harder, hoping you'll crack under the pressure, but the calmer you become, the less influence they have over you. Emotional manipulation loses its power when it doesn't get an emotional response. This doesn't mean you procrastinate or avoid making decisions. It means you refuse to let someone else's timeline become your responsibility. You know the difference between acting quickly because it's necessary and acting quickly because someone wants to rush your judgment. Over time, this simple habit builds something incredibly valuable: trust in your own decisions. You stop living with the regret of saying yes too soon or reacting before thinking, while others spend their lives cleaning up the mess created by impulse. You quietly move forward with choices you've actually examined. A Sigma male understands that the strongest response isn't always the fastest one. Sometimes, the smartest move is simply refusing to let urgency decide your future. Number 4. You can walk away from opportunities. Everyone else is chasing. One of the rarest things about a Sigma male is his ability to walk away from opportunities that everyone else seems desperate to grab. While most people assume that if everyone wants something, it must be valuable, you instinctively question the crowd. You've learned that popularity and value are not the same thing, and following the herd has led more people to disappointment than success. This doesn't mean you're afraid of success or unwilling to compete. It means you're careful about what you're competing for. You've seen people sacrifice their peace, their health, and even their integrity just to win prizes they never stopped to ask if they truly wanted. They chase promotions they don't enjoy, relationships that drain them, and lifestyles designed to impress strangers. By the time they reach the finish line, they realize they were running someone else's race. A Sigma male isn't easily swept away by trends, hype, or fear of missing out. When everyone is rushing in one direction, he has the patience to stop and ask, is this actually worth it? That single question saves him from countless regrets. He understands that saying no to the wrong opportunity creates space for the right one. People often mistake this for a lack of ambition. They assume you're settling because you refuse to chase what everyone else is chasing. The truth is the opposite. You're ambitious enough to protect your time from distractions disguised as opportunities. You know that every yes carries the hidden cost of 100 no's. There's also a quiet confidence in walking away. It tells the world that your decisions aren't controlled by trends, pressure, or the fear of being left behind. You're willing to be misunderstood today if it means staying true to yourself tomorrow. Number 5, you notice patterns before you notice people. Most people judge others by personality. They decide within minutes whether someone is charming, funny, confident, or easy to get along with. A Sigma male pays attention to something much harder to fake: patterns. Because while personalities can be performed, patterns almost always reveal the truth. Anyone can be kind for a day. Anyone can sound wise during one conversation. Anyone can make promises when the mood is right. But what happens next? Do they keep showing up? Do they repeat the same mistakes? Do they treat people differently when there's nothing to gain? Those repeated actions matter far more than first impressions. This way of thinking protects you from being fooled by appearances. You've learned that people often tell you exactly who they are, but not through speeches or grand gestures. They reveal themselves through routines, habits, and decisions they make over and over again. One repeated behavior outweighs 100 beautiful words. You also notice patterns in situations, not just people. You begin to recognize how the same choices usually lead to the same outcomes. The friend who always blames everyone else never seems to solve his problems. The person who constantly breaks small promises eventually breaks big ones too. The one who refuses to learn from yesterday somehow keeps complaining about tomorrow. This doesn't make you cynical. It makes you observant. Instead of getting carried away by emotion, you quietly collect evidence. You'd rather be pleasantly surprised than repeatedly disappointed. That's why you don't rush to trust or judge. You let time reveal what excitement tries to hide. Ironically, this habit often makes your decisions look effortless. People wonder how you predicted that someone would disappoint them, or why you avoided a situation that later turned into chaos. They call it luck or instinct, but it isn't either. It's simply the result of paying attention to what keeps repeating while everyone else is distracted by what looks impressive in the moment. A Sigma male understands that people change their words to fit the occasion, but their patterns usually remain the same until they make the difficult choice to change themselves. That's why he listens to what people say, but he believes what they consistently do. Number 6, compliments make you more suspicious than criticism. Most people light up when they receive a compliment. A Sigma male appreciates kind words, but he doesn't automatically trust them. In fact, Excessive praise often makes him pause and ask a simple question: why are they saying this? Not because he's paranoid, but because he's learned that compliments can sometimes be used as tools instead of honest expressions. Some people praise you because they genuinely respect you. Others praise you because they want something from you. The difference isn't always obvious at first. Flattery has a way of lowering people's guard. It makes them feel important, accepted, and appreciated. Once that happens, they're often easier to influence. You've probably noticed how quickly someone's tone can change when they don't get what they want. The person who couldn't stop calling you brilliant suddenly becomes cold or critical the moment you say no. That's when you realize the compliments were never really about you. They were an investment, and they expected a return. Ironically, criticism doesn't always bother you as much. Honest criticism, even when it's uncomfortable, can teach you something valuable. It forces you to examine yourself, improve your thinking, or correct a mistake. Empty praise, on the other hand, can be far more dangerous because it encourages you to stop growing. If everyone tells you you're already perfect, why would you ever improve? This doesn't mean you reject every compliment or assume everyone has hidden motives. It simply means you don't let praise become your compass. You don't build your confidence on words that can disappear as quickly as they arrived. Instead, you value consistency. You pay attention to whether someone's actions match their admiration. Over time, this mindset protects you from manipulation and keeps your ego in check. You remain grateful for genuine appreciation without becoming addicted to it. You understand that applause is temporary, opinions change, and admiration can be unpredictable. A Sigma male would rather earn quiet respect than collect endless compliments. He knows that praise can be pleasant, but character is built by truth. And sometimes the person who tells you what you need to hear is far more valuable than the one who only tells you what you want to hear. Number 7. You're more interested in predicting human behavior than winning arguments. Most people enter a disagreement with one goal in mind: to win. They want the last word, the stronger argument, or the satisfaction of proving someone else wrong. A Sigma male approaches conflict differently. He's far more interested in understanding why people think the way they do than collecting another victory in a debate. You've noticed that being right doesn't automatically change anyone's mind. In fact, the harder people are pushed into a corner, the more stubborn they often become. That's why you don't waste your energy trying to dominate every conversation. Instead, you pay attention to what sits beneath the words. What fear is driving this person? What belief are they protecting? What experience shaped the opinion they're defending so fiercely? Those answers are usually more valuable than winning the argument itself. This habit also helps you avoid repeating the same mistakes. Instead of asking, "Who was wrong?" you ask, "What caused this to happen?" That small shift changes everything. It moves your focus away from blame and toward understanding. And once you understand the cause, you're far more likely to find a lasting solution. You also begin to notice that people are surprisingly predictable. The same insecurities often produce the same reactions. The same unchecked ego creates the same conflicts. The same refusal to take responsibility leads to the same disappointments. Once you recognize these patterns, human behavior becomes less confusing and far more understandable. That doesn't mean you excuse bad behavior or tolerate disrespect. It simply means you refuse to let emotions cloud your judgment. While others react to what they see on the surface, you're trying to understand what's happening underneath. That gives you an advantage most people never develop. Ironically, this mindset often earns you more respect than constantly trying to prove you're right. People may forget the argument, but they remember the person who stayed calm, listened carefully, and understood the situation without letting pride take over. A Sigma male knows that winning a debate can satisfy the ego for a moment, but understanding people can change the way you navigate life forever. And in the long run, that knowledge is worth far more than being declared right. Number 8, you protect your future self more than your current emotions. One of the rarest qualities of a Sigma male is his ability to think beyond the moment. While many people make decisions based on how they feel right now, he quietly asks a different question. Will I be proud of this decision a year from now? That single question changes everything. Emotions are powerful, but they're also temporary. Anger tells you to react. Excitement tells you to rush. Loneliness tells you to settle. Fear tells you to quit. A Sigma male has learned that emotions are excellent signals but terrible leaders. If he follows every feeling that comes along, he'll spend his life cleaning up unnecessary mistakes. That's why he's willing to disappoint his present self to protect his future one. He'll skip the easy shortcut to build a stronger foundation. He'll walk away from relationships that feel good today but will bring pain tomorrow. He'll choose discipline over comfort, knowing that today's sacrifice often becomes tomorrow's freedom. This mindset isn't always glamorous. In fact, it can be lonely. People may not understand why you refuse certain temptations or why you're patient when everyone else is chasing instant results. They may even call you boring or overly cautious. But you're not trying to win approval in the present if it means creating regret in the future. Over time, these small decisions begin to compound. While others are dealing with the consequences of impulse, you're quietly enjoying the rewards of patience. The gap between you and everyone else doesn't happen overnight. It grows through hundreds of ordinary choices that no one notices until the results become impossible to ignore. A Sigma male understands something many people learn too late. Every decision is a conversation with your future self. You can either leave that version of yourself with more opportunities, more peace, and fewer regrets, or you can leave him with problems you refuse to solve today. Number 9, you can tell who someone is by watching what they ignore. Most people pay attention to what others do. A Sigma male pays just as much attention to what they don't do. That difference may seem small, but it reveals more than most conversations ever will. Anyone can behave well when something important is at stake. People show up on time for job interviews. They become polite around influential people. They suddenly act generous when there's recognition to gain. But the real test of character isn't how someone behaves when everyone is watching. It's how they handle the things they believe no one will notice. You watch the little things that most people dismiss. Does someone keep their word, even when it's inconvenient? Do they thank the waiter, the cleaner, or the security guard? Or do they act as if those people are invisible? Do they return borrowed items without being reminded? Do they leave small responsibilities for someone else to clean up? These moments rarely make headlines, but they quietly reveal the kind of person you're dealing with. You've also learned that what people consistently ignore eventually becomes a pattern. Someone who ignores small promises will eventually ignore important ones. Someone who overlooks the feelings of others in everyday situations will likely do the same when life becomes difficult. Character doesn't suddenly appear during a crisis. A crisis simply exposes the habits that were already there. This habit keeps you from judging people too quickly. You're not easily won over by charm, confidence, or smooth talk because you know those qualities can be practiced. What can't be practiced forever is consistent respect, responsibility, and integrity. Those show up in ordinary moments when there's nothing to gain. Ironically, the smallest actions often carry the biggest truths. The way someone handles things they consider unimportant tells you what they truly value. That's why you don't focus only on impressive achievements or dramatic gestures. You pay attention to the unnoticed details that everyone else walks past. Number 10, you rarely explain yourself, because explanations become negotiations. One of the most overlooked signs of a Sigma male is knowing when an explanation is useful and when it's simply an invitation for unnecessary debate. Most people feel the need to justify every decision they make. They explain why they said no, why they changed their plans, why they chose a different path, or why they walked away from someone. The more they explain, the more they find themselves defending choices that were never up for discussion in the first place. A Sigma male understands that not everyone deserves an explanation. If you've made a thoughtful decision that aligns with your values, you don't feel obligated to convince the entire world to approve of it. You respect people enough to be honest, but you don't hand them the role of judge over your life. There's an interesting pattern you'll notice. The more reasons you give, the more reasons people think they can argue with. Tell someone you're too busy, and they'll suggest another time. Tell them you're tired, and they'll say you can rest later. Tell them why you're leaving a situation, and suddenly they're trying to negotiate every point you made. Before long, your explanation has turned into a debate you never wanted. That doesn't mean you're cold, rude, or unwilling to communicate. When someone genuinely deserves clarity, you're happy to give it. But there's a difference between communicating with respect and defending every personal decision as if it needs public approval. This habit also teaches people how to treat you. When you constantly over-explain, you unintentionally send the message that your boundaries are flexible if someone pushes hard enough. When you're clear, respectful, and firm, people quickly learn that your decisions aren't invitations to bargain. Ironically, the less you feel the need to justify yourself, the more confident you appear. Not because you're trying to seem mysterious, but because confidence doesn't constantly ask for permission to exist. Number 11, you're comfortable being misunderstood. If the alternative is pretending, one of the hardest things for most people is accepting that not everyone will understand them. They spend years changing the way they speak, act, dress, or even think just to fit into someone else's expectations. A Sigma male chooses a different path. He would rather be misunderstood for who he truly is than admired for someone he has to pretend to be. That choice isn't easy. Being yourself doesn't always earn applause. Sometimes it attracts criticism, confusion, or distance. People may assume you're unfriendly because you're quiet. They may call you arrogant because you don't constantly seek approval. They may misunderstand your independence as a lack of care. Instead of chasing every misunderstanding, you learn to live with the fact that people often judge what they don't fully understand. The truth is, not everyone sees you through the same lens. Some people will only understand you based on their own experiences, fears, or expectations. No amount of explaining can completely change that. Trying to control every opinion people have of you is like trying to control the weather. It's exhausting and, in the end, impossible. This doesn't mean you enjoy being misunderstood or that you ignore people who matter. If someone is important to you, you'll communicate honestly and clearly, but you won't sacrifice your values just to make strangers feel comfortable. You know that acceptance earned through pretending always comes with a price. You eventually lose sight of yourself. Ironically, the more authentic you become, the smaller your circle often gets. But the relationships that remain become stronger because they're built on truth instead of performance. The people who stay appreciate the real you, not the version that was carefully edited to please everyone. A Sigma male understands that authenticity will never make him popular with everyone, and that's perfectly fine. He's not trying to collect approval from every person he meets. He's trying to build a life he can respect, when he's alone with his own thoughts. Number 12, you trust consistency more than intelligence. Most people are impressed by intelligence. They admire the person with the quickest answers, the sharpest opinions, or the ability to solve difficult problems on the spot. A Sigma male appreciates intelligence, but he places even greater value on something far less glamorous: consistency. Because in the real world, what you do repeatedly will almost always matter more than what you know. You've probably met people who are incredibly smart, but never seem to finish anything. They have brilliant ideas, endless plans, and impressive conversations, yet very little to show for it. Then you've met someone else who isn't trying to be the smartest person in the room. They simply show up every day, do the work, keep their promises, and improve little by little. Years later, it's usually that second person who's built something lasting. This is why you don't judge people by a single impressive moment. Anyone can have a great day. Anyone can make one bold move or deliver one unforgettable speech. The real question is whether they can repeat that effort when the excitement is gone and nobody is cheering them on. The same rule applies to yourself. You don't rely on motivation because you know it's unreliable. Some days you'll feel inspired. Other days you won't. But consistency doesn't ask how you feel. It simply asks whether you'll keep going anyway. That's where real progress is made. This mindset also changes how you earn trust. People stop believing in you because of what you say and start believing in you because of what you repeatedly do. They know you'll be there when you say you will. They know your values don't change with your mood. That kind of reliability is becoming increasingly rare. A Sigma male understands that intelligence can open a door, but consistency is what keeps it open. Talent may get attention, but discipline earns respect. Ideas can inspire people for a moment, but steady action inspires confidence over a lifetime. If you recognized yourself in several of these signs, don't rush to label yourself a Sigma male. The title isn't what matters. The mindset is. Being rare has never been about standing above everyone else. It's about refusing to live on autopilot. It's about thinking before reacting, choosing principles over popularity, valuing consistency over talent, and staying true to yourself even when it's easier to blend into the crowd. The truth is, anyone can act confident for a few minutes. Anyone can look mysterious, post motivational quotes, or play a role. But living with discipline, protecting your peace, reading people wisely, and making decisions that benefit your future rather than your emotions, that takes something far deeper than appearances. The world will always reward those who make the most noise. But history is filled with people who quietly changed their lives, their families, and even the world without constantly demanding attention. They understood that real strength isn't always visible, and real confidence rarely needs an audience. So don't measure yourself by how many people notice you. Measure yourself by how well you keep your word, how calmly you handle pressure, how wisely you choose your battles, and how faithfully you live according to your values when no one is watching. Because in the end, being rare isn't about being different for the sake of it. It's about having the courage to remain authentic in a world that constantly rewards imitation. And perhaps that's the rarest quality of all. Stay Sigma.